Okay, let's take a look at a demo scenario that illustrates our end-to-end lineage capabilities, but puts a specific focus on governance. So we're going to open this demo where I am acting as the liaison to the executive committee, and I get this email from my manager which basically tells me that there's a problem with one of the portal reports, and it's asking me to take a look at the contract type code because there's getting duplicates and something is wrong and it's confusing our executives. Well, I've forgotten what contract code is, really, so I've got to look it up in Business Glossary Anywhere. So I use my hotkey to make that selection, and here's the term. Now maybe that definition here gives me enough information, but perhaps not, and I need more detail. So I go to the Business Glossary browser directly from here. Once I'm in the Business Glossary browser, I get the detailed definitions, the long description and short description, which hopefully would satisfy my requirements and give me a better understanding of the term, which is particularly important for governance for all of us within the organization. It also shows me the context. Where did this come from? It's in the individuals category as opposed to, say, employee benefits, and it belongs, of course, to the global life overall category. I see there is a steward, Richard Smith, in case I have additional concerns or confusion as I'm trying to research this for our executive team. And as I open up general information, I can see other values that tell me more about this particular concept and term. Of course, I ultimately want to get down to where did it come from, how is it created, but looking at synonyms and looking at related terms gives me additional context and meaning. I also see an example and a sensitivity flag, which perhaps tells me a little bit more about the value and importance of that field. Now, sensitivity flag, as we had talked about earlier, is a custom attribute. Here I have valid values. And you expressed to us that you wanted to see what valid values are. And there are many ways that Information Server can deliver valid values to you. Perhaps those values are those that were identified and discovered with our quality tooling of Information Analyzer or Discovery. We saw assigned assets briefly, and we're going to come back to that. But first I want to look at history. Auditing is extremely important for governance and understanding how things have changed, particularly for compliance purposes. Notice that example was edited by Elise. So when was that done and what were the changes? That could be important as we track history. If we want to contact the steward is identified within the system. This is not just a random name that is typed in, right? But Richard Smith is a real user of Information Server, establishing and helping make governance critical. It's not something I randomly type in. His contact information is there. The other assets that Richard manages are there. And we don't have any conflicts or problems with misspellings of names if they were randomly accepted. Let's look again at assigned assets. As we can see here, the contract type code definition applies to multiple columns within our system and tables. And it also applies to an ETL job and a BI report. Notice also that we can have external assets, such as this particular contract description, which happens to be a Word document identified within our system. Again, further enhancing my ability as an employee of the organization to understand what contract type code really means. But I'm more technical, and I have to answer some questions for my management, so I'm going to check out one of the assets that is the table. I'm somewhat familiar with this particular table, so let me see its details. I can see the columns that are belonging to that particular table, which is in our relational system. And from here, I can directly launch Business Lineage. This is a high-level summary lineage that tells me where information has come from, but without getting into the really gory details. Now I can move around within this interface and scroll to see my report on the far target right-hand side. And as I move towards the left, I can see that it's from the OTC over-the-counter system. And that might be enough for me to satisfy Pete and be able to tell him where this came from. But I'd like to have more details. So since I have the right authority, I can drill down into the metadata workbench. This brings me down to a lower level where the lineage is actually created before it is summarized for the business user. And here I can see additional details, a lot of other information about this table if that's important to me. And now I can do what we call data lineage. Now data lineage is always done under the covers. The business lineage is a summary of it. But data lineage shows me all of the possible places that the data has touched as it flowed from the source. I happen to know that the source was that flat file now that was part of our over-the-counter extract. So I'm going to do a graphical lineage report from that point going forward to my target. You'll see it is a much more detailed report, but I'm more technical, so I'm more comfortable with that. So I can move it around, get to the place I'd like to do a review. I'm going to zoom it up here. And then because we're using the data stage ETL tool that is part of Information Server, I know that transformations are where these mappings are. So I'm going to open the apply ID info rules to take a look at exactly how the contract type code has been created. Maybe this will offer me details and suggestions on how I can explain what was done inside the report and increase our executives' confidence in what they're looking at in the portal. Here I can see the exact source code rules that came from data stage to generate that particular code. But that might not be enough. I'd like to have even further confidence on where this came from. So let's explore the sources. Within the metadata environment of Information Server, you can see that we can hold on to things like views, which we import directly from the relational system, and we parse those views to find out what the lineage is and where they came from. And I can see here that this particular view came from a table called benefit contrib, not one I'm familiar with. So again, I'm going to drill down from here to look at the details of that particular table. I can see that there is a steward, a lease for this one, and if I scroll down I can check the indexes and analysis. Data governance and data quality go hand in hand. And as we discussed in our earlier demos in this session and while we've been here visiting with you, Information Analyzer and Discovery are critical in establishing rules in history. And while I don't have all the details of those particular offerings in here, I have the results and I can see that it was analyzed. And I could contact the lease to find out more about what she found within either Discovery or Information Analyzer. Now you also told us about external processes in your environment. We have what we call extensions. This is our way of representing processes that you have in scripts, 3GL code, or other ETL tools. And just like with data stage, I can open up these extensions and take a look at the details that will assist me in understanding where something came from and providing a complete picture of data lineage. Once again, I can see what all the source code is that came from there if I chose to represent it within the system. Data governance and information governance relies heavily on understanding the big picture. Data lineage, for those folks who have the technical background, and business lineage throughout the entire infrastructure of Information Server provide us with that data governance capability.